The following program is rated TVMA. This program contains topics and viewpoints from metaphysical professionals. Topics, conversations, insights, and experiences are meant for a mature adult audience and may not be suitable for younger viewers. All insights, experiences, and conversations contained in this show are meant as informational. Always consult either legal or medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to Terra Turas, the Metaphysical Roundtable. 5 professional readers coming together, including Brenda Lynn, Heather Lynn, Jamie Gibson, Reverend Pat Beers, Michael, and most importantly, you, the audience. Walk with us as we cover different aspects of the metaphysical and spiritual sides of life. Bring together our insight, experience, and discussion to a roundtable event. And now, here is tonight's host. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael. I will be your host for this evening here on our show, Terra Turas, the Metaphysical Roundtable. Joining me this evening, as you're looking at them from the upper left, is Reverend Pat Beers. Myself, I'm in the middle up on top. On the upper right-hand side is Brenda Lynn. The bottom lower left-hand corner, Jamie Gibson. And on the bottom right-hand corner is Heather Lynn. Now, this evening, we're going to take the time for the first couple of shows and stop and introduce, well, tonight we're just going to introduce 2 of our panel members. And our panel members this evening are going to be, first up will be Heather, and then after we get done with her, we grill her a little bit, then we'll move over to Brenda Lynn, and we'll kind of see what's going on in her life. After we get done with kind of what we the 5 of us, were joking, we call it the hot seat. And it's kind of ironic because we allow ourselves a little bit of latitude and a little bit of laughter. But the thing is, we want people to come to know who we are, what we do, that we are working professionals and things like that. After we get done with our time in the hot seat, we will take a little bit of time, and this evening we're going to talk about being empathic and how it affects each one of us as a reader, and what some of our experience might be in being empathic. So this evening, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and introduce Heather. Here's Heather. Say hi, Heather.
Hi. Nice to be here, everybody. I'm in the hot seat first. Okay, awesome. Let me just get in here. So, here to talk about myself. Well, my journey as a psychic has been probably not the same as anybody else's. We all have our own story. So I was essentially unawakened until May 2016. I remember as a little girl, my mom being very psychic, very intuitive. She always knew things were going to happen. And I kind of, I was taught that it was very bad, but I was literally taught that it was evil, being quite frank. So I had been praying and I had been very ill, and I had this experience where I had an aunt and she had passed on, and I'd be doing the dishes and she would be yelling at me. And I'm like, this isn't really happening. I just never really believed in the other side, And so I moved out of this house that was making me sick, went to live somewhere else, and it kept happening again. And I could feel her. And it wasn't a sense that she was yelling, that she was mad, but she was really trying to get my attention. And I knew one person to call, and that wouldn't think I had totally lost my mind. And I called her up and I said, what is happening? Is this even possible? My aunt is dead and she's talking to me. What's going on? And so she gave me this exercise to do. And I sat on that bathroom floor that night. I put the kids to bed. I took a hot shower. I did all this healing work, and I sat there and I connected with my aunt, and my life has never been the same since then. I mean, stuff has just crumbled and fallen away. And I've created this whole new life where I'm more true to myself, because now I know my abilities and what I'm capable of. And I always knew I had a big purpose here on earth. And for me, this was such a huge awakening to that purpose, to help other people heal themselves, and to be that connection for them, for spiritual guidance, and to connect with our loved ones from the other side. So that's really where my journey has taken me. I mean, now I'm here, and I work with seashells. I do Reiki healing energy. I do all kinds of I have all kinds of tools in my tool basket, as I like to say now, as a psychic and as an energy worker. So I'm really excited to share this, share my own knowledge with everyone. And I'm really excited to hear everyone else's stories and learn from them as well.
That is fantastic. We'll transition back over here just for a minute so we can pick everybody up as we go along. Now, everybody, if you would, we're going to take just a minute, and we'll kind of go around. This time we're going to go more in the alphabetical order that we are used to. And we'll start with Brenda. Brenda, if you've got a couple of questions for Heather.
Yeah. So, Heather, when you say you do healing work, what exactly is that? What exactly does that entail?
Well, for me, I feel like a lot of people say, oh, I'm a healer, blah, blah, and I'm in naturopath school. My professor just came out and said, like, I know you guys think you're healers. You're not. You can't heal other people. I totally agree, right? I totally agree. You don't heal other people. It's not me doing it. I do the healing work for myself. So that entails all kinds of different things. Again, tools in my toolbox, meditation and energy work and stuff. But for me, it's really about just being a conduit and showing other people that they have the power to heal themselves, that the power is within themselves. And I think that is the most magical thing about all of this, about becoming awakened and to my own abilities. Because, yeah, I'm a healer of my own life, most certainly, first and foremost. But I'm really just a conduit to show other people that they have the power.
Awesome.
Jamie, what kind of questions might you have for Heather?
Well, Heather, excuse me. I've not heard of working with seashells. What does that entail? What does that look like? How do you do that?
Well, so everything has a vibration, right? I think we can all agree to that. Everything has an energy. So people work with crystals and stones. They all carry a very certain energy with them. And actually, I'm looking at a seashell. Of course, I have one here with me, obviously. They carry their own energy. And it was weird because for an entire year, I had every meditation I did. My guides, the archangel, everybody was just giving me seashells. They're pouring out of their pockets. I mean, just everything was seashells. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with these seashells? And, you know, as I left the information in, they let me know. And so I literally, when I got in my bathtub with these seashells, I'm like, okay, I want to hear what you have to say. Let me know. And so I figured that was the closest place, you know, to connect. So I got the bathtub with my seashells and my pen and paper, and things have never been the same since because they speak so loudly when you listen. I had one lady at one of the shows tell me that they sing. She's like, your seashells, they're singing. Aren't they beautiful? So they just carry energy, much like I use them along with the oracle cards a lot of times. And it is just amazing how on point and just connected they are. It's really a cool thing.
Wow, that is cool.
Pat, I'm going to put you next.
Okay. When you're working with people, do you get feelings if they're hurting somewhere, or do you get messages that this is where you need to look, or how exactly do you know where to go?
Yeah, so I have always had a difficult time defining how I work with the energy of the people because it just comes through however it needs to come through. I've experienced, I mean, just that knowing, or I will, you know, really connect with a certain guide of theirs. Um, just, I've had smells and I've had feelings. I mean, I have had, you know, readings where you can just, the one in particular this past summer, I almost hit the ground because it was so intense, this experience that this young girl had gone through. And they let me know that I was only experiencing a tiny piece of the pain of this experience. And had they let any more come through, I wouldn't have been able to finish the reading. So it just comes through in all different ways. I love to write. Things come through in writing very clearly. But just, and again, the shells, the cards, however spirit says to come through, that's how it comes through for me.
Cool. Very nice. I like that.
I'm not rocking too much. I'm a little, I'm in my rocking chair.
Nah, you're doing fine. I've got a couple of questions for you. I've noticed, and I told somebody before, and I'll say the same thing again. One of the videos that you had shot, more on the selfie side, when you were out walking by a lake, and you were talking about female empowerment and being able to empower yourself and being able to not only uplift yourself more, and you were speaking more to females than guys. It was very obvious in the video. And you were saying to take care of the men in their life. Do you find and do you resonate more being outdoors than you do indoors?
Oh my gosh, yes. I was just having this thought today on the way here. Heather, you have not been on the ground barefoot lately. Yes, I love the outdoors. Anywhere near the water. I mean, I'm part mermaid, so the water speaks to me. That, and I'm a fire sign, and I think that my opposite, the water, just is so soothing and calming to me. It's such a good representation of our own emotions, and I just feel so connected when I'm in nature.
That's kind of cool because I noticed that in your video you could have been surrounded by wildlife or people or anything, but you were very much at peace and at calm, not only with yourself but with your surrounding. That's what made me ask about that. Now, when you read for other people, and I know that a couple of others have touched on this, did you ever have information that came across to you that kind of floored you, and yet you did not say that or put it across in the same fashion to the person that you were reading for? I'm not going to say that you didn't say it verbatim, but did you kind of tone it down a little bit before you said it directly to that person?
Yes, and I feel like I get better the more I dive into this, the more blunt I am. And again, we read people, so you kind of know to who you can be more blunt with and who maybe you're like, I need to be a little bit gentler with them. I've had a few things, again, this summer, there was this woman and there was some things coming through that I was really, I didn't have the courage to say these things because I know it was about the loss of a child and the loss of a baby. And I still think about it to this time because I could sense all these things and it just couldn't come out of me because I think that maybe I related, you know, it just couldn't come out of me in a clear, precise way. I think I was just felt too much of it. I felt too much of it was so fresh and it was so new. And I didn't know how to tread those waters, so to speak. And so it is one thing that kind of, it's so fun about that woman in particular, how I wish I would have expressed what was really there, and I just kind of tiptoed around it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'll ask one more simply because I'm very curious. How long did it take you to become comfortable in what you were hearing in order to pass that information along to someone else?
You know, I had been doing like readings just for like people that I knew, and kind of noticing like, oh, hey, this is really, first I learned to trust it for me. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is like real. Well, I did this. I hopped on Facebook Live one time, really long time ago. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pull some cards for people. I'm just going to like do this. And I did. And wow, it was so powerful. And I was just lit up. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. It just came through so clear. Everything. I didn't even need confirmation from them. And I got it later as the video went on, but I didn't even need it, because it was just, when you're that connected, it just flows through you, and the feeling, it's real.
That I can understand. Does any of the other folks here, do you have any other questions that you want to ask Heather while she's kind of in the hot seat this evening?
I have a comment I would like to make. Man, you remind me, Heather, when you're talking about your experiences of the magic that happens. When we first wake up, when we first start to get those psychic things, and everything just becomes magical. And that is really fun to see on your face. So I just wanted to make that comment. You bring a lot of magic. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was one of the first things when we started to put the group together. And I began looking. The first time that I ever ran across Heather was on a radio show by Beth and Barry Gilmer up in Michigan. And she was running a little bit late because she had to take care of her kids and make sure that everything was good with them. Within listening to her for 3 minutes, I was done. When the radio show and everything was done, I chatted with her for a few minutes. I walked out into the other room, and I told my wife, I said, love, this is a lady that I've got to find a way to work with. And believe it or not, I said the same thing to Brenda within 24 hours. I said, I just met this lady. I have got to find a way to work with her. And when we finally put this group together, it was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer right here. This is it.
8 years later.
Yep. Okay, we are going to transition. Thank you very much, Heather. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We are going to transition over to Brenda, because she is going to be the next person in our hot seat. So, Brenda, tell me about yourself.
Well, let's see. So, I guess I'll start by saying that family is really important to me. And I have 3 kids and 6 grandchildren. And I don't know, it's a huge accomplishment, I guess, one of my bigger accomplishments, because I just empty nested last fall. So I'd been an active single parent for more than 31 years. That's a long time. And so I'm going through an adjustment phase, of empty nesting and, kids in the house. And it's really unique. Actually, I'm experiencing some magic also that I haven't experienced in a long time, which is why the stuff that Heather was sharing sounded so, felt so exciting. I have been very psychic since I can remember. I can't tell you the day it happened or anything like that, because it's just always been that way. I actually thought that other people were psychic, that everybody was. I was quite surprised to find that people just didn't know things, you know, like what was right in front of their face. So that was an interesting awakening. I would say that happened sometime in my teens, but I had some pretty intense experiences in my late teens and early 20s. And they were scary experiences too. So they were scary. And I didn't like it. I shut it off. You know, and later on I started drinking too much and way too much. And then I got sober and they were back. And, you know, I had to either learn how to deal with it or get drunk. So I learned how to deal with it. And I had a lot of resistance to it because I too was raised in a pretty religious home, 2 different religions, Catholic and evangelical. And, you know, being psychic is not, it's definitely not condoned on either side. And, you know, I just started waking up and paying attention and testing it to see, you know, if what I was getting was accurate. And I was. And so one time, long story short, a friend of mine and I went to Denny's, and we'd always sat in the same booth. And, you know, I noticed that he was questioning me a couple of times, like, Brenda, how did you know that? You know, whatever it was, how did you know that? How did you know she was going to, how did you know that about her? You just met her, you know, and people were around and I could just kind of change the subject or just not address it. And then we were at Denny's and I was across the table from him, up against the wall in the corner. So I was like literally backed into a corner, and he really confronted me and said, no, really, really. And I just said, you know, I don't know. Something is going on with me since I got sober, since I quit drinking. And, you know, I just know things. And beyond that, I really don't know. So we went to a gallery, it's called, and that's where a medium does a reading for everybody there. And it just kind of, things just kind of come at him, and then he delivers them to, you know, who gets the messages. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And while he was doing his gallery, I was getting the same things that he was getting. And he got to me and he just stared right into me, just right through me, and said, and you, my dear, I think you know exactly what's going on here. And I said, I think I might, you know, and it just started to grow from there. And, you know, I've been doing it professionally now for quite a while. I don't even know how many years, 10 or 15, 20. I don't know, because I've always used it. So, you know, I was a life coach before becoming a certified life coach was ever popular, you know, or it ever existed. You didn't need a certificate for it. It's been years that I've been coaching people. Like that has been 25 years, I'm sure. And so it's always been a part of my life. But I'm a Reiki master teacher. I am a medical intuitive. I do workshops, I teach, I do tarot, I do oracle cards, crystals, I do psychometry. If whatever it is, I read it, you know, everything. I think everything tells a story, you know? And so when I'm a hypersensitive, multisensory empath, and that means that I receive, I guess you can say clairsentient, clairaudient, all of that stuff. It's multisensory. So I hear, I taste, I see, I smell, I feel the emotions, I think the thoughts, I feel the physical feelings. And I use Reiki a lot when I do my medical intuitive work. I also, in my own life, practice orthomolecular medicine, which is food for healing and healing for food. Just all of the food is your medicine, basically, food and herbs. I've become a vegan because it's because my body won't process animal protein at all, or dairy products. I started a mobile cafe. So I own a cafe called Kiefer Studio Cafe, and it's under Studios for Wholeness. And I'm in the process of revamping a new food truck. So I just moved back to Texas, Marble Falls, Llano area from Fort Myers area in Florida. I am a full-time reader. I read full-time, and I do my food almost full-time. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's basically it in a nutshell.
And that's a good nutshell to have. There is no doubt about it. We'll transition ourselves right back in so everybody can take a look here. We'll start again. This time, since Brenda was on top and she was in the hot seat, we're going to move down to Heather. Heather, what kind of questions do you have for Brenda?
Oh gosh, that was quick. I just so enjoyed hearing your story. You guys out there, we've been working on this for, I don't know, at least a couple months. And we've just gotten little snippets. So this has been an opportunity for us to learn about each other as well. And it's wonderful to have a fellow medicine woman in here with me. And I can't think of a good question right now. I feel like I'm in the hot seat. I think you're so awesome. I just want to cheer you on. What made you move back to Texas?
Well, this was a tough call. I have a son and a daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren in Florida. And I have a son, daughter, and a son-in-law and 4 grandchildren here in Texas. Did I say that right? I left my son and his girlfriend in Florida, and I'm here with my son, my daughter, my son-in-law, and 4 grandchildren. Then I have 2 grandchildren in Florida. And Florida is great and all, but the earth energy does not resonate to me. And I really struggle in Florida. It's just hard for me to manage there financially and just everything. I love this area of Texas is called the Hill Country, and there are deer that are walking by every day. We've got porcupines and snakes and scorpions and birds of every feather and coyotes yipping and howling at night. And nature is just so abundant here, and it's rocky, and I love the Llano River. The Llano River is so special. I've always said that's the one that was flooding, that made the big news. But Llano River is something special. You can sit in one of her little whirlpools, and it's all granite stone in there. You can sit in one of those whirlpools and she'll tell you secrets about China. I mean, that river is just amazing. I absolutely love it. And there's abundant butterflies and bees, and it's awesome.
I love you.
And
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was going to say, and for business, my cafe too. So it would be better here. Yeah.
I love your appreciation, like how you said when you were telling your story about everything has a story. Because everything has a story. Every animal, every creature, if you listen, if you're in tune, and I love that connection. So how are you dealing with being an empty nester? Because I'm at the opposite spectrum. I have a 1, 3, and a 5-year-old, and I can't imagine just having none. I mean, they're gone for less than 24 hours, and I'm like, bring them back now.
Yeah.
How are you handling that, Mama?
Well, I don't know. Actually, I mean, when Ryan first left, I was like wandering from room to room, not having any idea why I was in that room and just having meltdowns. It was really tough for the first month, I would say. It's very quiet and it's very weird. But you know, it's an adjustment, like anything. I remember, you know, being a parent with kids your kids' age, and it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. Yeah, I had 3 also, so it's a real challenge. I remember thinking some days I wish this would end, you know, and then when it did, it's like that song "You're Gonna Miss This" by Trace Adkins. That's so true, you know. But it's just day to day. Yeah.
Jamie, if you would, tell me what kind of questions you might have for Brenda.
Hi, Brenda. I'm curious about when you first started getting to more comfortable with this, but we're still kind of hiding it from everybody. What was that like?
Oh, well, it was fine when I was, you know, when it came to family, I was unnerved about it. I finally, it was years that I had been working as a professional before I told my mom, and I had to sit her down and tell her, because I was about to be on like the #1 morning show on the radio in the medium market that we lived in. So I had to tell her, and I was really nervous. And she said, "Wow, I always knew you were psychic." I was like, "Oh my gosh, I was so nervous for nothing, you know? So I always knew you were psychic." So, yeah, so that's how that went. You know, and I just, it's not a big topic of conversation. You know, I don't go out of my way to talk about it. People can ask me about it anytime they want, but I'm quieter about it than I was at first. I don't like to be one to go and talk about it, or tell people my opinions, or, you know, tell them what I think about these topics or these things. I usually sit back and let people ask me. It's a practice of being humble, really. You know, practicing humility. I don't know if I would say I'm humble, but it's a practice of humility. Yeah. So it's not a big topic. I don't get asked very much by family, which is fine.
But in the beginning, it was scary, to say the least. Kind of hiding it from
Yeah,
I think double life.
Yeah. Oh, it was definitely sort of a double life. And I was definitely shaking when I had to tell my mom. But since I've given her Reiki, you know, and yeah, she enjoys Reiki. Or she enjoyed it when I think I've done that twice for her. Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's switch over to Pat for a minute. Pat, tell me what kind of questions you have for Brenda.
I would like to know more. What did you call the food being medicine? I'm very interested in that.
It's called orthomolecular medicine, and it's food for medicine. So what I do whenever I'm creating vegan meats, for example. And so one of the things that's a big deal for people is to have a whole protein, a complete protein, which means it has all of the amino acids. So when I make this, oftentimes it lacks lysine. That's the amino acid that's missing. So I will add a food that's lysine, like white beans, cannellini beans have lysine in them. So that will make that vegan meat a complete protein. That's not really orthomolecular medicine, but it's making, you know, it's how I look at it to be whole. Now, if we have like colds and flu, for example, I would be suggesting bone broth and ginger tea, and my ginger tea specifically, because it is ginger root, it's Ceylon cinnamon, which is good for infections. Ginger is good for infections, and it's good for, clearing up the sinuses, and it's got some, antibiotic properties in it, especially when you add the raw honey. But you add the raw honey after it's cooled down so you don't kill the good enzymes. So, and then it also has, and a Ceylon cinnamon sticks. So it's very, very, very healing. It's good for lungs. So I do stuff like that. Depends on what you need,
Very interesting. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to switch over to me. Here comes just a ton of questions. I've known Brenda, I want to say about 9 years when we started working together for an online company. And I noticed that you didn't mention that, and I only mentioned it in passing because, that's where I met you.
Yep.
In the time that I have known you, I've watched you transition from Florida to Texas, back to Florida. Now you're back to Texas. And now you've lived in both worlds. Do you find Texas to be better grounded metaphysically than Florida?
That's an interesting question. I feel very psychic both places. But one thing that the earth energy in Texas has done for me is it has allowed me some healing. And it's just the nature of the earth energy in this area. This is like Comanche area here, old Comanche history and stuff like that. And it is higher altitude wise. And, it's interesting you say grounded, because this area has roots, really strong roots, and they can root because they're in more than sand. In the area that I lived, we are like 6 inches above sea level. And so you can have roots here, which is very like a metaphor to me. And I've been able to do some healing. And when I say I've been able to do some healing, the way I see healing is that I experience the past differently. It doesn't change it, or, it's not like it didn't happen, but I don't experience it the same. I'm able to, in that process, really process things and get a new perspective. And I'm able to do that here in Texas more so than Florida, because I feel connected to the earth here. And when you feel connected to the earth, you can really do some processing. If you feel disconnected, it's like everything is fractured, and it's hard to get grounded. So I like to be where I feel connected. I have some really, really awesome goddess friends here too. We go hang out in the river and have goddess meetings. Listen to the secrets from China.
You mentioned, now I know where you were at previously. It was crowded down in Florida, because you were outside of Cape Coral. So there were a lot of people. And I mean, it's just, you couldn't turn around and not run into people. And you didn't have the wide open space that you do in Texas. Do you find people are a little bit calmer in Texas, a little bit more open, a little bit more forgiving, because you're not crammed wall to wall, shoulder to shoulder with people? And I mean that in a metaphysical sense, not just an observational sense.
Yeah, I do. I do feel that to an extent. I definitely feel like I have more space. The sky is definitely bigger in Texas, and the space that I feel is definitely much more expansive. I feel that people are less stressed here. And the things that they stress about here are different than what they stress about in Florida. And for me, that's more manageable, personally. I don't know that I think it's less stress, but it's just different things that they stress about.
Fantastic. Does anybody else have any other question for Brenda this evening?
No, I have a comment. It feel we know when we're home. When you go someplace, and it's like I don't care if it's you just know, and it just sounds like that has all those elements for you, and you've tried. You really gave it the best effort. It's a nice place to visit, but I'm home here now. You're just a country girl at heart, Brenda. That's all.
Yep.
Very
I
connected,
had a
very connected to nature.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a magnet on my refrigerator that said, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is we're going to take about a 3-minute intermission so that the rest of us can kind of kick back, grab something to drink real quick, stretch. What I would like for you all to do that are watching is go ahead and check it out. We've made a short list of books that we might recommend, and then just some interlude kind of things to go on. So we're going to return in about 3 minutes, and we'll be right back. That was our intermission. Hope everybody had a few minutes to get up, stretch your legs, do what you needed to do. I know everybody here in our group was scrambling to do what they needed to do, grab something to drink or whatever. We're done with our hot seat topics for this evening. Next week we will go ahead and have two other people from our panel that are going to talk about themselves so that we can ask them some questions. And we'll do that one more time for our last panel member on our third show. And after that, we're going to really get into just a heavy, more topic-centric conversation. And that's when we're going to cover things about pyramids, dream interpretations, the 7 laws, chakras, mind, body, spirit, many different kinds of topics. This evening's topic, because we've got about a 45-minute window left for us, this evening's topic is being empathic. And some of us, all of us in this group, are empathic to different levels and different extremes. And I think everybody would agree with me, it is probably the first step that many of us took in becoming or being a reader or being psychic or being a medium or things like that. It's part and parcel to who we are and what we do. But we're going to go ahead and take a minute and we'll go around the table one at a time and we'll talk about what it is about being empathic. So I'm going to start off with Brenda, if you would, tell me what being empathic is for you.
Well, gosh, mine is, I am multisensory and hypersensitive. So I feel some, what I had to do is learn how to discern it, because at first it was a crazy feeling. I thought, why am I thinking these thoughts? Why am I having these emotions? Why do I think this is happening? Why do, why am I feeling this weirdness in my side? And it took me a while to put it together that, well, actually somebody had to point it out to me, that I was feeling other people's stuff or feeling stuff in the world. Like, for example, when the crash of 2008, the economical crash of 2008, shortly before that happened, well, I would say for 6 months before that happened, I felt crumbling. It felt like everything was crumbling and nothing was on solid ground. And I couldn't understand why I was feeling that. And then the crash happened, and then that crumbling feeling went away. So I put that together, that's what that was. So a lot of times if I'm feeling something like I feel like, oh man, I have a headache or my sinuses hurt, and it just comes out of nowhere. Then all of a sudden, somebody will say, oh man, I've got this horrible sinus infection. And then my feeling will go away because it's been validated, it's been confirmed. So that's kind of how it started. As I've gone along, one of the things that I have asked for is that the feelings not be so strong and so overwhelming. Heather talked about that, because otherwise I can't function. Because there was a period where I thought I was losing my mind, and I was in the fetal position in bed for about 8 to 12 hours. And I got up and I said, okay, God, whatever, just give me discernment. So I know what it is. And so sometimes I ask that it not be so strong, or I need to put myself in a bubble before I go into a store like Walmart. Oh, mama, there's a lot that goes on at Walmart. And so, I put myself in a bubble so that I am not feeling every single little thing, and a lot of times I'll mirror it so that nothing can come in. If you're looking at me, you're going to get a mirror right back at you. So I do stuff like that, little practices that really work. But there's a lot to it. If I'm reading somebody, I will get thoughts, feelings, emotions, physical feelings, dreams. The way I experience it is, for example, how you remember something, you have a memory. That's exactly what it's like for me. It's like I'm recalling a memory, except it's not mine. And so you feel those things when you're having a memory, you're remembering things, you go back through the whole feelings of it and everything. It's just that it's not my memory, it's somebody else's. So that's what it's like for me, kind of long story short.
That's quite okay. I'm going to switch over here to Heather. Heather, tell me, empathic in your life.
So empathic in my life, I'm just gonna say real quick, Walmart, Empireville, because yes, you gotta shield up. You gotta. I like the mirror idea. Yeah, obviously, you guys, we've all come up with different tools and stuff that help us to protect. Because oh my goodness, yeah, you don't want to be walking around feeling everybody's stuff. And just like you said, I can't remember what you keep calling it, but that's what I am. I just didn't know there was a word for it. I thought that I just assumed that that's what everybody, how other people experience it, multi-sensory something. I don't know how I said it, but yeah, I feel it. I see it. You just have this sense of knowing. I live in an apartment building, and there's a young girl that lives above me. And a few months ago, I'm just doing my thing, and then all of a sudden I'm in almost a full-blown panic attack. And I used to suffer from anxiety before I knew I was an empath, because I didn't know I was grabbing everybody else's stuff and onto it. So I had this full-blown panic attack, and I'm like, oh, and then it come to my awareness. I was like, Heather, you're not anxious about anything. Like, this isn't yours. And as soon as I become aware, it goes away. As soon as I was like, this isn't mine, the pain was gone. But I was like, my heart hurt. I wanted to cry. I was like almost on my knees, and I was like, oh girl. And I messaged her. I'm like, girl, are you okay? So yeah, it gets really intense. If you're in a room full of people, dance recital, oh my goodness. So I remember to ground myself. I remember to, protect my space, because this is my space and I don't want theirs in mine, unless I'm reading somebody on purpose, right? So being an empath for me has been quite a journey, just realizing that that's what it is, because I had a long, since my teens, problems with anxiety and insomnia, and I was diagnosed bipolar, all these things, and I had no idea that I was psychic and that I was empathic. So knowing that, and just being aware that when I start to feel ungrounded, or like all these, it comes through in many different ways, that it's not mine, and then it passes.
I think a lot of people, and especially here in the group, would understand that. Truly, they would. Jamie, I'm going to put you up next.
Okay. For me, it's very much like what Heather and Brenda were saying, but also mine comes through more emotions. I get heavy emotions. And I can just be happy, go in the grocery store, and come out sobbing because I pick up somebody else, crazy feeling. I don't go Christmas shopping anymore. I do everything online because I just can't handle the malls anymore. One of the things that I do, and I tell my clients to do, is I try to remember to put myself in a bubble, but in addition to that, I put up mirrors that are facing outward. So I'm in a big shiny disco ball, and then I play some BG music or something in the background. But it helps me just kind of like get more to myself. And I have to also be very aware of doing some self-care, especially when I've been working all day with some clients, because that stuff just stays on me like 17 wool coats in Arizona if I don't do something, and it'll have me on my back, just like Brenda said, in a fetal position. I've had that happen way too many times. So it's a challenge, but it's also an interesting sensation for sure.
Interesting is a good way to put it. That's a good apt terminology. Pat, I'm going to switch over to you, dear. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. It's always fun to be with you guys. For me, I'm so happy for all these teenagers that are coming up that are going through all the same stuff we did, but now they have support. When we were doing it, I'm 72, so when we were doing it, they just thought we were crazy. I didn't know what empathic was. Our son, who's now 44, dang it, kid's getting old. When he was 11, going to the grocery store. You're walking around and all of a sudden I can't walk, or my head's pounding, or my stomach's upset. And I didn't know what it was or what to do. And I would get to the checkouts. I almost had nervous breakdowns. My doctor told me, whatever you're doing, you got to figure it out and stop it, or you're going to end up in the hospital. And I'm like, if I knew what it was, I would try to stop it. I had no clue. And I would go to the grocery store and I would have to stand at the way back of the counter, put my stuff on that belt, then run through to the front where it was open because I couldn't breathe. If I had to stand in between those two racks, and it's just like, I tell people, if you can imagine what it's like being in a basketball stadium and having everybody yelling at you and you feeling everything that's going on with them, that's what it was like. And so I told Spirit and I told God, I got really upset. I said, if you want me to do this work, and nobody knew really I was doing it except some very close friends, you gotta stop this because I can't handle it. And that's what they did. So my message, I tell them, don't tell them. I use the mirrors. Oh my gosh, do I use the mirrors? And I tell other people to use the mirrors. I tell them, don't tell me anything I can't do something about, because like Jamie said, like Brenda said, when the financial thing was happening, she's crumbling before 9/11, we all had that feeling of dread for a couple months. What is going on? What can I do? We couldn't figure out anything to do, but you felt like you're going crazy. And when I'm with someone, or even here at home by myself, I'll get this awful sinus headache or a pain in my back or whatever. And I used to go, and first I stop and I acknowledge it and I go, is this mine? And if it stops, it ain't mine. I thank them for allowing me to take it from whomever, and I send it into the earth to be transmuted because I have to stop the pain before I can do anything else. And then I'll say, who is this for? Is it someone I can help? Do I even know who this is for? And if I cannot, thank you for allowing me to take it from them in that instant. And I send it into the earth to be transmuted. Now send it into the earth for those people. Because otherwise we wouldn't move. I mean, it just would be so. And sometimes it's a relative or a close friend. And if they tell me, I send my angels and guides to their angels and guides and ask them to help them to deal with this, to take it away, or to bring them some peace and comfort in some way. But that's basically, I'm with the girls, boy, the mirrors are the greatest thing since sliced bread because they protect us so much.
I have definitely been there and done that, like many of everybody else. For me personally, it has been one of those things that, having from a very early age. Now, since Pat said that she was her age, which floored me when I first met Pat. It's been years that I've been working with Pat. She introduced me to some of the psychic fairs in the area, and I would go around and do that. But when I was very young, again, I'm 50, so you go back, growing up in the Christian church, you did not talk about these things. Not to family, not to anybody. You just did not speak about it. So there was nobody around. Now, thankfully, and I didn't realize it until I was older, as I would spend a couple of weeks in the summer with my grandparents, my grandfather would talk to me and tell me stories. And I learned, and I paid attention, and I listened. But it didn't dawn on me until after the man had passed away. The stories that he was telling me were directly relating to things that I was feeling, seeing, and doing, because his grandmother was full-blown Native American, and it's part of where my gifts have come from. So when I was very young, if I felt things, I would turn and look at my grandfather, and I know that he felt the same thing, and he would launch into a story from when he was young or when he was, and it helped me learn to cope to a point. As I got older and this kind of capability increased, like everybody else, very difficult to go out into public, because you're constantly, it's almost like being attacked from all kinds of outside. And it's a very ugly feeling at times, because if you go out to the mall at Christmas time, you would feel greed, you would feel money, you would feel yuck, me, I, me, mine, all over the place. And it would be enough to make you literally want to vomit. Until I met, oh Lord, 22 years ago. And he became my mentor. His name is Richard Black. He passed away a few years ago. But Richard taught me how to really begin to work with my gifts, my capabilities, things that I do. Not so much enhancing them, but to how to incorporate them. And the first thing that he told me and taught me, as odd as it sounded, and back then, you go back to when I was 30, and it's like, you sound like you're a psychedelic guy on dope or something. I don't know. But he told me, he said, the best thing that you can do every morning when you get up, get dressed in a very nice, pure white light shirt and button it up. Put on your pure white light pants, socks, and then get dressed in your clothing so that you can go out into the world. And he said what that does is it helps reflect, because I didn't know much about mirrors at the time. He said that helps reflect all of that energy and keeps it away from you as you are going about your day. After I grew a little bit more comfortable in doing all of that, I learned personally to turn around and say, okay, you know what? I know that feeling is not mine. It didn't start within me. It doesn't resonate inside of me. So, Spirit, I appreciate your bringing that into my life. I appreciate the capability to feel it, but it does not belong to me. It can go back to whomever it came from. That's theirs, and I don't want that. And that helps push things right back out to where it should go and where it should be. That's my thing with being empathic. For people that are empathic, take your time. Use a mirroring effect. Use any kind of things that keep it at bay so that you can get out into the world and actually be part of everything. We're going to switch back over here so that we can grab hold of everybody. And I'm just going to go around real quick. Pat,
Yeah.
on the topic of being empathic, what was the best experience you've had being empathic?
This is going to sound terrible to a lot of people, but when my biological mother passed, I grew up calling her aunt instead of mom. I was adopted at 10 days old within the family. She hadn't been able to speak for a couple months because she had a stroke during a heart surgery. And the ones of us who could be there, the ones that weren't out of state and couldn't get back, like my sister in California, we were all with her. I was all worried about her fear. You know, she was all worried about. And it was snowing huge snowflakes. It was January 8th. It was snowing huge snowflakes. And my brother-in-law told me to look at the window. And I swear to you, the snowflakes were 2-3 inches across. And she looked at all of us and she had this peaceful smile. And I heard her say, I love all of you and I'm okay. I'm going home. And, you know, it just was just phenomenal. I had never felt that kind of, well, I've had 2 near deaths, and the second near death, I felt that, but hers was so different. It was just, she'd been through a lot in about 6 months, you know, from going in for a minor heart surgery to coming out, you know, the strokes and all that kind of stuff. It was just fascinating. She was just, because I've been around other family members that passed, and it was just, she was so at peace. It was just fascinating. I've never felt that kind of you can't put words on it, but that was the one time, because you just felt like your heart was going to come out of your chest, because it was just, her heart was so big and so full and so quiet and so loving. She had 8 kids. So it was just, you know, and she'd outlived the husband and most of her family. It's just fascinating, very peaceful. That was, I would say, my most.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brenda, what was the best part of an empathic moment that you've ever experienced?
You know, I think there are better ones. 'Cause I've had had some really good experiences as an empath and picking up on other people's stuff. But I have to say, it's a funny one. I was I was doing a reading, and my goodness, this woman had all kinds of people around her from the other side, and so I was saying, I was asking her about this salty pie. Was it a chicken pot pie, or what was it that you made? Because they're all showing me this pie, but it's salty. And she says, no, I never made a chicken pie. Well, vegetable or something? No. And I said, this is awfully salty. And I had to drink water and, carry on. And she says, no. I said, it's really salty. She says, oh, that's the time I made the apple pie and put the salt in instead of the sugar. So that was awesome. I was rolling that was years and years ago, actually, that I had that reading. I'll never forget that, because I was so thirsty. So as soon as she said, no, that was apple pie that I put salt in instead of sugar, the saltiness went away. So wow. I was done, with that salty feeling. Yeah. That was fun. But I've had other really fun empathic moments too, and really meaningful ones as well. But that's the one that comes to mind.
Jamie, what was your number one?
Oh, it's hard to pick a number one. There, like Brenda said, there's lots of really good ones, but some of my more touching ones for me have been connecting with somebody who's preparing to pass, or helping the family members with the person who's preparing to pass. And it's just it gives you a different perspective of the process. As the family member watching it, of course, they're in all kinds of grief and everything, but as the person who's going to prepare to pass here, it's just so joyous or light or something like that. And it's a feeling that I've not experienced in my life, everyday life. I get to experience it when I get to connect to these types of situations.
And those ones are when you are helping somebody cross over or to pass on. Those are the ones that stick with you forever. Yeah. There's no doubt.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful times.
Heather, tell me, what was one of the best empathic pieces that you remember, or one of your number ones?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick. I want to say, on the topic of, just magical life in general, my favorite thing about being empathic, and this happened when I really became awakened, was just, I call them truth, you call them, goosebumps. Okay. So when somebody is sharing something that's on their heart, something they really believe, something that's driving them, or just a really touching story, and I can feel all of it. Pat, when you shared your story, I could feel it. It was like I was there. Every hair on my body was standing up. And I experience that every day. And I love that. I love that about this work, is just that there's magic in every single moment. We know when somebody speaks truth. And that's so powerful. I mean, yeah, we also know when you're lying, but it's so cool to feel the truth in your entire being on an everyday basis. I did have one very powerful experience of a very dear friend who was very soon to pass away, and I hadn't been officially certified to do Reiki. I was just kind of, calling in this energy, and I sat down on the couch with her, and she was unconscious, and I just said, okay, whatever you need, just here it is. And it just, the energy sucked out of my hands before the thought finished. It came out so fast, and she just took it. And I could just feel that she was thankful. I could feel all these things that she couldn't tell me. She passed away the next day, but it was in love. And I know that she felt it. And that was very, she continues to guide me even now. So I've had lots of very powerful experience like you guys as well.
I'm going to tell you mine. And it comes from my mid, maybe later 20s. When I was awake and I knew what was going on, and I'm working and doing things. I am one of those people, when I was younger, I could not even fathom going to the mall at Christmas time. Because it was just, I literally, Shelley, my wife Shelley and I, had gone to Target one time when they first opened here at the Eastwood Mall. And it was close to Christmas time. And Alex, and I believe he was the only one we had. Alicia wasn't born yet. But even at that point, it's just getting too many people close to me. I actually took the buggy with Alex in the buggy, and I left Shelley, and I started running through the store looking for a safe spot. That's how bad it was. But the one that nailed me to help me understand several different layers and lessons all at once, I had to go out gift shopping Christmas Eve at the mall because it was the only place that was open, and it was the only place I could get what I wanted. And now you can imagine the dread that went with that. I'm like, oh, no, this is going to be bad. Mm-hmm. Got into the store, came out, and the concourse is packed with people. I mean, packed. My stomach started to go into knots. And my shoulders are shrinking in like this, and I'm holding on to my bag. It looked like I was this old dude holding on to stuff, trying to get through. All of a sudden, now, I'm 5'11". It would remind me, honest to God, somebody about your height, Pat. A little shorter lady came up, and she was walking with a cane. And she walked up in front of me, and she looked at me. I thought I was going to run her over. I felt so bad. She goes, "Son, are you okay?" I said, "Ma'am, I can't stand this. I have to get outside." She goes, "You follow me. I'll take care of you." And she started to lead me like I was a sheep. And she took this cane and would hit people in the legs and in the ankles to get out. And she would say, "Move, move, excuse me." And she led me all the way to the door to get outside. And I took this deep breath. I turned around to thank her, and there was no one there. And that told me not only am I feeling all of these other people, but I have to at the same time remember Spirit will still take care of you. You have to trust in what you're doing. That's my number one, being empathic. There's no doubt about it.
I think we call those earth angels.
Yeah. I had those before too. It's fun.
Now, just as a group, and we're not even going to put it on anybody, have you ever been in, and we'll use the word haunted, have you ever been in somewhere that is haunted and you have felt presence and things like that? And if you did, how did you take care of it at the time? Not later, but just at that time.
I avoid those places personally. It's too much for me. With all the emotions and stuff, it's too much for me. So I try to avoid them. I'm a baby.
I remember the first time I went into an antique store after I had my awakening, and I was like, I walked in the door, and it was like they were waiting for me. It was kind of a joke for them, you know, or I walked in, I was like, whoa, like who turned the sensory on? Why are there so many ghosts? And I would walk over, and I remember picking up this one, like, you know, those old fashioned like mirrors and brushes they always used to use. And I picked it up, and I could see this woman. I had this vision of this woman in this sitting in front of the mirror. I could see it, I could feel it, I could everything, and it was the coolest thing. But yeah, I loved going to haunted places. It makes me all excited. I do myself a lot though. It's of utmost importance, the grounding and the bubble.
When I lived in a haunted house, I didn't mind the energy upstairs, but the energy downstairs I didn't like. There's male energy upstairs and wicked feminine downstairs. I don't like it. And I've been to other haunted places too. And what it feels like to me is a pressure. And I get, like it's a different energy than the other side when it's haunted or ghostly or something like that. I feel a pressure like all over my body pressure, especially my head, and then a low ringing in my ears. The other side rings very high pitched. The ghostly energy is, it's not pleasant. It's a low tone ringing in my ears. I don't like it. It's startling. You know what I mean? The other side is not, it doesn't startle me. It's gentle. But ghostly energy is startling, you know, and yeah, I don't like it.
Yep.
Nope.
I just spent
I'm with Jamie.
I just spent the weekend at the Conneaut Lake Hotel in Conneaut, Pennsylvania. A little bit haunted, over 100 years old. And it's so funny because the first few times I went there, they would not leave me alone. I couldn't sleep. I said, you know what, guys, I'm here to work and I need my rest and I will talk to you tomorrow. I get calls a lot to help people with places like that. I got a call last night from a very dear friend's son, bought antique furniture in Hartville, took it home. Their 2-year-old, his girlfriend's 2-year-old granddaughter that she's adopted, is seeing spirit, won't sleep in her room, and immediately picked up that it was a man. And because the grandmother is so afraid and fearful, he caused the clothes bar in the closet in the room where they were sleeping, where his nightstand was, to fall off the wall, dump all her clothes on the floor. And she had two gun cases in that closet, and he threw them into the middle of the floor 4 feet away. And you know, my friend, being well-intentioned, knows what I do. I helped him with his house because his aunt refused to go to the light. And he told her to sage, but he forgot to tell her to open a window to let the spirit out. So, you know, it just pissed the spirit off. So he's like loaded for bear. And I told him, this is totally unacceptable. You're scaring the little girl. So you either leave or, you know, you got a problem here. But we talked him through it. And he go, okay. So then he went to the basement and started banging on the washer and dryer with his fist. But first time it happened to me, it scared the living daylights out of me. I've been talking to dead people since I'm 7. So, and it was my uncle, and he not only talked to me, touched me, and I could hear him talking and everything. But, and I called a friend because I felt that this was out of my realm. And the more we talked, more we got, this guy was just trying to scare us, and they were so hyped up. And that's the thing to remember, that if they can get you hyped up, they can feed on your energy. And we got them calmed down and everything calmed down. But it's just, for me, it's just something I do. I mean, I had some very interesting experiences going to older homes, like in West Akron and Bath. House was built in the 1800s, and that's when they had the little sitting room when my mama had a baby. She had her own private room over there, you know, and a room for the baby. Got to tell her about that lady because they kept seeing her and hearing her, but they couldn't figure out what she was. And all she was doing was just rocking her baby in a rocking chair, and they would hear the floor creak. It was freaking them out.
Wow.
And when we sat and talked to her and talked about her, they were fine with it. And the lady never bothered them. She just wanted to be acknowledged. And after that, I don't think she ever came back. But they had young children and grandchildren, you know, that were visit friends and relatives. And she just wanted to be acknowledged.
Wow.
So what about you, Michael?
It is a difficult thing for me personally because I enjoy going into places that are haunted, and not for a scare factor. I actually like to go in and talk with them. I don't want to just automatically try to start crossing people over or doing things, or if you're there, show me a sign. No, I'll sit down and listen and feel, and the things that you feel, or for me, it's dealing with that first emotion that washes over you. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's love. But to understand what comes after that, what caused the anger, what caused the grief, what caused that loving feeling, and to try to connect with whatever is there, but then the hard part for me is to disconnect. And not that it's difficult, it's just I've enjoyed my time sharing whatever emotion that they're presenting, to have and to remind them of a human contact, because they're living at that point through me vicariously. They're remembering their human side because they can feel that I feel it, and they feel me with the hair standing up and going, wait a minute, So it's difficult sometimes to step back away from that and to come back into the real world. But I enjoy it. It's just fun. But it's that initial. It's like somebody grabbing hold of you with your shoulders and going, "Hey," and at first you're scared until you say, "Okay, what do you got? What are you doing? What are you feeling? Why are you angry?" And then it tones down. But it's a lot of fun for me. Sometimes, yes, it can be absolutely horrid. Sometimes it can be absolutely scary as hell. You've got the good side and you've got the dark side, and we don't get to pick and choose what we see and feel. We've got to deal with what comes. Well, ladies, it has been an absolute enjoyable evening for our first outing for Terra Turas. A special thanks to my wife, Shelley. Shelley is in the chat room and moderating the chat room for us.
Hi,
Yeah.
Kelly.
And thank God she remembered. Yeah, everybody stop and say hi. And one of these nights, that I'm going to have to drag Shelley in here and just put her on the camera for everybody to see her.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God that she remembered, because I was so busy setting everything up, and I checked the chat room and I see her in there and I'm like, oh, my sweetheart remembered,
You might have to tie her up and drag her in, but she'll come.
She's going to fight tooth and nail about that.
She is. But we'll bribe her then if nothing else works.
Yeah, it's just us sitting down here having a chat. For the people that are watching, and later on as we go, we might turn this into a podcast. Over the coming weeks, we're going to get into topics that would cover like chakras, balance, creating with spirit. We're definitely going to be talking about crystals and how they work within our lives. Dream interpretations, again, mind, body, and spirit, and that's a big one. We're also going to cover manifesting, the 7 laws, and that's one that Brenda had brought up as one of our topics, with the 7 laws. And it dawned on me, Brenda, your interpretation of the 7 laws and mine might actually be slightly different, so I'm looking forward to when we actually get around to touching on that. And the last 2 that we're going to just briefly talk about, just a little, we're going to cover a show for symbology. And the last one that's on the list is, what is magic? So for the people that are checking this out and tuning in, it's not going to be us just sitting and gabbing amongst the 5 of us, even though we all enjoy it. After we get through the first couple of weeks, we're going to start tearing into some seriously heavy topics, because we as a group believe not only does it need to have the information coming across, but we need to dispel the myth that goes around some of these things. And why does it work in our life, and how should it work in somebody else's? So, everybody, I appreciate your being here this evening. This has been an absolute blast. I am so glad that we finally, as Heather had mentioned, we've been working on getting this together now for a couple of months. And finally, our first night out, and I think that we have all done rather well. I'm happy that everybody has been here and that we've done good. So, next week, we will have a different host, and we will have 2 other of the panel members in the hot seat, and we'll have another miniature kind of discussion. And the week after, we'll do one more hot seat, a larger discussion. And the week after that, we'll get into our full-blown topics that we'll be talking about. Those are going to be some heavy conversations. So you're going to want to make sure to check back in and check things out as we go along. But until next week, ladies, thank you so much. It has been great. And for all the people that are watching, please, next week, November 14th, check us out, 8 p.m. You can check us out on Facebook. Our Facebook page is /Terra Turas. You can check us out on the web. We have our own website, terraturas.com. You can get in touch with each of us privately if you need to. Check us out on Facebook. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think. Until next week, I hope everybody has a wonderful week. And we'll talk to you again soon.